What up?
What's happening, doctor? How you feeling this evening?
Man, I'm feeling good, man. All is well. It's another Sunday night service.
Yes, sir. Right here on Religiously Incorrect Sunday night.
Yeah, man. It was a hot one, then it wasn't. You know, it,
No,
it, it, it
it
was
was
a
a hot
hot
one for
one.
me.
Oh, Ray, listen, we've been there. So,
It was a hot one for me.
and I think every church gets hit at some point. We got hit with the AC going out a couple months ago. We actually had it twice while we were rectifying and finding the problem. But two, and I already know your story because we already talked today. So
Right.
two issues that always come up. It's always on the hottest day of the year. It's always on National Hell Day. And it's always when it's a special day with guests and visitors or a guest preacher. Always.
Man, we had a beautiful crowd, friends and family day. Everybody's out, and we passing out fans. We got on the ceiling fans, and I mean, ain't nothing helping. I'm
It's
just
just
like,
hot air blowing on hot air.
I finished half my sermon. I was like, let's just do the benediction.
Right.
Let's
Right. Man, I mean, we all get there. And let's just be clear, just so everybody knows, this is not the subject, but let's just be clear. When it's hot like this, when it's bad like this, the preachers are just as miserable as everybody else.
If not more miserable. We up there, first of all, we worried, hoping that y'all ain't mad at us. Then
They are. They are.
Then we trying to preach. and so, we got double the stress. It's burning up,
We're sweating before we even start preaching. I mean, I sweat naturally. You're already dying on the first song. You say amen, and you already just got drenched.
By the way, how'd your sweat stuff work?
You know what? Okay, so here's how it works. It doesn't stop me from sweating. I'm a forehead sweat guy, by the way. People who have never seen me preach listening. It's not the glow. I don't have the glory of the Lord on me. I'm sweating. So I tried this new a cream special lotion. It does not stop me from sweating completely, but it makes my sweat dry much more quicker. So I dab. Usually I would do the preacher towel and it's still just gushing, but it literally stops right away. And all I have to do is take a second break, and it really does handle it. So Pastor Holbrook knows our pain. They had a unit down. It's a bad year, y'all. It's global warming. Hey, the church better start believing in science and global warming. I know that. The church is getting hotter.
I'm about to bust out a couple of our stained glass windows and just put regular air conditioners in there.
Listen, ain't nothing wrong with it. Put all them window units in that joint. You better you better call one of them assistance programs and say my church needs about 10 of them joints.
Right.
Yeah, man. So, man, it's one of those the world is collapsing kind of weeks. That's what it feels like. You got chaos in Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
You've got a Hurricane Lucifer, hitting Louisiana right now.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, why has nobody thought of that yet? Why has nobody thought about giving? You know what I really think should happen? We need to start giving hurricanes Bible names. Start giving hurricanes Bible names.
That would be pretty cool.
But we are praying seriously for Louisiana. It's a terrible storm. I mean, for real, it's going to be very, very rough. And then, of course, we have the greatest, threat of all to mankind, and that is the Crate Challenge.
The Crate Challenge.
That is the number one threat. Crate Challenge in 1 week has taken more victims than COVID.
Listen, TikTok and banned it. They can't even stop it because people keep on posting them. It's absolutely, and I mean they adding stuff to the Crate Challenge. You got the Crate Challenge while falling in water. The Crate Challenge, people doing it backwards now. It's the devil.
I watched somebody do a Crate Challenge while they were rolling a blunt. I watched somebody do a Crate Challenge while he was eating a pack of Twinkies or something. He was eating a pack of Twinkies while he was doing it. I bet you somebody does it with a baby or something.
Here's the thing. If you're skinny and agile, it's probably pretty easy to do. But if you're a bigger individual and you can't hardly walk up and down the street,
Are you sure? I mean, maybe you have what if you have a lower center of gravity?
I don't know. I don't. I'm not gonna do it either way. I
I'm not
consider
doing it.
myself to be pretty athletic, and I'm not about to try to fool myself into believing that I just
Okay. Here's what I'm surprised about, Pastor Jeff. I'll be honest. This is religiously incorrect. The crate challenge seems really white boyish, and I don't get how it got to the hood.
It's in the hood.
That's what I'm saying. I went out to Southington schools for a while. That's the kind of stuff they would come up with out there. You have nothing better to do, and I don't know what it is about white people. They love hurting themselves, especially young white guys. Young white dudes just love hurting themselves like that. Excuse the language, the jackass movies and the jumping off of, just doing crazy stuff. Black people are usually averse to dangerous activities besides shooting, of course. Shooting and selling dope.
I mean, just to, I guess, make it a little more serious, when these challenges started, it was basically giving crack addicts and those people who didn't have any money, they were giving them money to make them do it. And it was almost
like the street fights, like the bum fights and stuff.
It was almost a embarrassment and trying to make these people almost wanting them to fall, but you get an incentive if you make it.
They pushed one down. I mean, they pushed one girl down. And so I just feel like, and I think that is, and I'm saying this, and I'm talking Black Afrocentric. It's not even Black History Month yet, but again, even that behavior on the whole has not normally been associated with the hood. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't some rotten stuff people don't do sometimes and pick on people, and there have been things where they've done things to people for money and different things like that. And I know that they do that to people who are, addicted. But I feel like a barrier is being crossed. I feel like a line's being crossed in how we treat each other and broadcast it. And I think it's a new level of cruelty and meanness. And again, you're adding recklessness to cruelty. These are usually not seen hugely in the Black community, to be honest. I'm just being serious. It's not something you've seen. So to me, I'm concerned, and I know that sounds like melodramatic and all, but I feel like we are watching kind of a breakdown of certain values that used to be like, just certain lines you don't cross. It's not even Christian values. It's just like, somebody would usually step in and be like, yo, don't do her like that. Don't do him like that.
Right. If I was to even see it, please don't. I would stop. Don't do that.
Well,
it's not worth it. If you need $10, I'll give you $10.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like, don't do that. And that's what I hope maybe there's some off-camera instances where that has happened for these people who are downtrodden or mentally, unstable or, addicted and, or poor. But, and I'll say his name because I know I like to quote people. Elder Mark Moore at a convention once, a Berean conference a couple years ago, said, "We live in an attention economy. We live in an attention economy." And I feel like we live in an attention economy. And, when you think about vaccines and stuff, we also live in an incentive economy.
Yeah.
But to the attention part, we really are jumping beyond reason when it comes to the things we will do for attention.
It's ridiculous.
And I think I just feel like there's just a certain piece of your soul you kind of lose as a people when you start doing that, because then you'll exploit anybody for anything. Absolutely. And the crate challenge, I mean, it feels like something I would have come up with my friends when I was a kid. Like, yo, let's try to walk over these boxes.
Well, I mean,
grown people though,
when we were young, you would take 2 cinder blocks, this broken piece of wood you found, and try to ride your bike, try to do jumps. I mean, we got jacked up doing that.
We played Evel Knievel, man. You know how many of us broke our legs playing Evel? My kids will never know who Evel Knievel is, and the joys.
Never. Now let me ask our millions of viewers out there that have watched. Some of y'all didn't go to church. Some of y'all are still sitting at home, based upon COVID, and y'all watching these live Facebook show. How many sermons, how many people preached today? How great is our God?
How great is our God? I was honestly thinking about it. I don't want to jump into our topic so quick, but I was thinking about it, and I even put up a graphic I found online. It was not my own meme, but it was Jesus walking on crates, and I really was pretty close to using that graphic and creating a. And I'll talk more about it, but it ain't nothing. I'm never going to do it. But one thing is, everybody already came up with all the jokes and the points.
Yeah.
So the other part about social media is everybody always does all the jokes. There's really nothing that you can say that hasn't already been said. So now, if I see a video, and I feel like we would have seen it already. It's 9:00. I feel like we would have seen the video already, or maybe it'll pop up tomorrow. Don't let me find a pastor that brought crates out on the pulpit.
Please. Oh my goodness. I bet you it's one up. I bet you it's one. I bet you it's one. Somebody that it might be, in a little small church somewhere. Somebody done it though. Somebody done it.
Since we don't have a guest, before we get into our subject, I'll just extend the time a little bit. I'll take some liberties. So, what do you really think about the Afghanistan situation?
It's a lot, man. It's a lot. You talking about with us pulling our troops out?
Yeah, I mean, just everything that's happened. The belief that it's a bad decision. It's obviously cost American lives. 13 brave, soldiers.
Right. As a former military, I do believe that we have a duty and responsibility to stand our ground, to fight for justice, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, all of that. But I don't know if it's worth it. I don't really like the whole going overseas type thing. I think we stand for, unite. And I know it's humankind, human decency, all of that. But it's just me personally.
Right.
It's just me personally. I mean, I'd rather see us, doing what we have to do for America. And, that's just me. So I would much rather our troops be at home with their families and, out of harm's way. Out of harm's way. It's very, because, I said it today during my sermon. I said people who are blessed oftentimes don't look like they're blessed. So you had Sarah, who had a people who have a promise don't always look like they have a promise. You had Sarah, who was over childbearing age, who had a promise. There's people over there who you don't think look like they're attackers, or they're I mean, literally, this little girl who has on a little dress and a jacket literally can have a bomb up under it.
Oh yeah, they give it to her.
Right, yeah. And you would never know. You know what I mean? These are the people who we as Americans just say we want to help. Hey, how you doing? Let me help you across the street. You help somebody across the street and end up blown up.
I think ever since Vietnam, first of all, my heart goes out to the soldiers, our brave soldiers who have given their lives, their energies, their creativity, who believe in the cause of freedom, spreading democracy. They literally participated in trying to give these people a better life. Let's not pretend like they were living in good conditions, because they were not. Right. The subjugation of women, very primitive forms of very conservative and fundamental forms, I should say. I don't want to say primitive, fundamental forms of Islamic faith. But Afghanistan has kicked everybody's tail who's ever tried to go in there. From the Roman Empire until today. Mm-hmm. They've kicked. Some people don't want you. I don't care what you think you got to offer them. They don't want it. Absolutely. Like, leave these people alone. They sent the Romans out. They sent the Russians out. Then we come skirting in there. We have been on a bad 50-some year track record since Vietnam of trying to figure out that there are pockets of this world that we will never be able to conquer with, no matter how many bombs and missiles and technology we have, because there is nothing like strict devotion to who you are as a people and what you believe in. And these people will die. They should have figured that out in the last days of World War II, when them Japanese was still sniping people from hillsides like 6 months after they surrendered. Like, they ain't care. Right. They're like, I'll just fly this plane into your boat. Like, we're dealing with different. And so America's arrogance is going to continue to catch up with themselves. And soldiers and even, well-intentioned people are going to end up in the middle of this, with us feeling like I want to spread freedom too. This world will not be full of free people.
It never.
It won't be. And some people don't want to have a Congress and a president and a parliament. They want it. We have had kings and princes and all this mess far longer and far stronger than we've ever had democracy.
Absolutely.
And why we think we can turn this whole daggone thing around in a couple hundred years, thousands of years of history, bugs the heck out of me, because people's emotions and patriotism and devotion really get caught up in it. And I feel bad. I know soldiers personally who served there, and they're broken. They're dealing with depression, suicide, all types of things because of the sacrifices they made just to watch it happen this way. And bloodshed was going to happen one way or the other. Let's just be clear. There was no easy way out. None.
Absolutely.
Zero.
My brother, I watched my brother, oftentimes, wake up with chills and still go through, what he has went through. So it is very tedious. It's very, people are going through there. They're having, and it's a sad situation, man. We have to continue to pray for our soldiers who have to endure these hardships.
And I have 3 words, and that is everybody's to blame. Everybody's to blame. Only one person actually voted against going to Afghanistan and getting involved in all this junk. And we've had 2 Republican presidents, 2 Democratic presidents. They're all to blame. Every last one of them.
Absolutely.
So it is what it is, whether it's intelligence, whatever it is, man. So before I get into our official sponsors, tonight's show is sponsored by chocolate milk. Haven't had chocolate milk in like 20 years. I don't know what. I think I was tired of drinking Pepsi.
Is that the real chocolate milk, or is that the Hershey's?
This is Hershey's syrup chocolate milk.
Sure. Listen, before we get to our sponsors, we just want to make a huge announcement. Y'all need to listen up, listen in right quick.
Lend me your ear.
Lend me your ear. Heed unto what I'm saying. Listen, starting next week, the first Sunday of what's next month? September, the 9th month, we are going to start on a new time alert. We will be coming on at 8 o'clock instead of 9.
8 p.m.
8 p.m. every Sunday night service. As we're getting closer to the real Sunday night service time.
Right. Pretty soon we're gonna have testimony service, pastoral night.
And that is not to say we go way over an hour now, but it's still an hour. But we are starting at 8 o'clock now. So
appreciate it. Yeah. We're on daylight savings time. It's religiously incorrect daylight savings time. It's getting dark out there. All right, we want to thank our sponsors, as always, for supporting Religiously Incorrect and allowing us to have a show. Without you, we couldn't pay our cable bill. So Phillips Care Cleaning Service, doing residential and commercial cleaning, floor, basic, deep cleaning, carpet cleaning, upholstery, wood floor, move in and move out. Don't waste your time. Let Phillips Care Cleaning do it. Call Fernando at 330-219-7916 or look up Phillips Care Cleaning, Phillips Care LLC on Facebook. And while you're at it, the leaves are falling. The trees are going bare, and my yard was filled up. Check out Phillips Care Lawn Services. They will take care of all your leaf pickup, edging, trimming, lawn mowing. They will take care of it. They also do plow services. They do it all. They are excellent, serving the entire Mahoning Valley. Check them out again on Facebook at Phillips Care LLC, or call 330-219-7916. Tell them Todd and Pastor Jeff from Religiously Incorrect sent you. You're not going to get a discount, but you'll get a smile. That's about all you're going to get. So we appreciate Phillips Care family of businesses for supporting us. Jeff, what's our topic tonight? It's just me and you. Maybe we'll bring in a surprise guest. What's the topic tonight?
Our topic tonight is, as we would say at the beginning of our sermon, I just want to tag the text. I want to tag the text.
That's what you say because you're cool. I say if I had a subject, preachers love lying. If I had a subject, you think about it all week long. You know good and well you got about 13 different versions written down in your notebook.
Now, just so we know, I tagged and talked to about tagged about 5, 6 pastors.
Okay.
Told them to listen in. Please write and share your comments. Just let us know what you feel. If you have anything to add to, because obviously I'm not the greatest. I know Pastor Todd is. He's the greatest preacher alive, but I'm not the greatest. So maybe you guys can add to and help us out as we talk about sermon prep 101.
And relevancy, how relevant, our sermons are. So, I mean, we're gonna chop it up. It's been a while. This goes back to the origins of religiously incorrect. How do you, Pastor Jeff, decide what you're going to preach about? Let's just start with just subject matter.
I watch TV and and I find something. No.
Jeff watches BET After Dark, and
no, honestly, as of late, I've definitely been trying to stick to more or less series. I am really into series, and it makes life a lot more easier for me, as well as it gives me a backdrop to stick to while going further into what the Lord has for me to say. And even during series, I think we really have to be prayerful, and we really have to be dedicated to studying, because oftentimes you may try to hit or say you're trying to do the right now I'm doing the book of Exodus. So I might do Exodus 1 and Exodus 2, but then Exodus 3 is, and I know you had to deal with it when you were doing Nehemiah. There are some books, books in Nehemiah, you're just like, I don't know, I might have to skip this one.
Hey, can we be honest? Okay, we're gonna be honest, Jeff. We don't always read ahead as much as we probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you only had like a couple chapters you were thinking about, and then by the time you get to chapter 4, you're like, I didn't know it was gonna be a story about 9,000 people that had babies, and then somebody, sperm on the ground or something crazy. Like it'd be some crazy story that you forgot was there.
Why did I laugh so hard about that? I think I laughed so hard because you said it.
Because I said it. I'm just saying, it's stuff in there, and we're guilty of it. Sometimes we can be short-sighted about it, but you're right. Theme preaching, excuse me, has become popular. I'm the type of person, I think everybody's different. I think people go through different seasons. Some people are just ridiculously disciplined and structured, and there are people that have their sermons mapped out like a year in advance, or they know what the first quarter of the year is already going to look like, and they're working on the second quarter of the year by February.
Right.
And they know where they're at. I am a random idea guy, and I don't like to say the word idea. I know that might sound unspiritual to you guys, but I sort of glean, I guess, honestly, out of just a well of knowledge, and just a well, like it's there. And I just believe that the Holy Spirit brings something to my attention. I really don't take credit for formulating the idea. I feel like something just kind of pops into your spirit. And, you ever heard that? And I don't know if this is a newer phrase because we're young, so I wouldn't know if somebody's been saying this for years, but we say like this dropped in my spirit, It really does. It really does.
It does.
It really, I mean, I know it sounds so cliche, but it's true. The word really does drop in your spirit, or God, I go through seasons where, and I think preachers have even like lifelong focuses where there are some preachers that just preach within the context of, say, like the congregation in the church. And there are others who preach in the prophetic vein. And there are others who preach, a kingdom message, others who preach a praise and worship, deliverance, obviously evangelistic, I have a body of Christ, New Testament kind of flavor and feel to how I kind of push, but also like a life application, which we would call topical, which we call, topical, but it can be very random. And sometimes I can have sermons that I've never preached, but I already had the outline and the main points that I feel the Spirit gave and just didn't know the right time to give it. So
one of the scariest things for me is, when I'm on a series, and like you said, that revelation, or God dropped something in my spirit, and it's like, do we stop the the series that we on, and oftentimes I have, because I really felt like God dropped this in my spirit and I needed to say it. And once I say it, it's kind of hard to get back on track.
It's hard to get back on track.
In
Yeah,
that series that I was in, so I end up doing
it is.
one-offs. After
and
that.
not just in a series, but within a sermon, we have all gone on a tangent that we did not intend. And it can be spirit led, and sometimes it can just be us. Like we chased an idea too far and we kind of went down a rabbit hole. It's a matter of discipline. Like you have to stay on task. And if God really did lead you to another place, then you got to stick with that too. But there have been times when I literally preached 2 sermons in one day because I really chased a rabbit hole and then tried to come back to what I originally never really fulfilled. And now I'm up there for an hour, and that's just not conducive to what you should do.
Here's a question that I have for you and those pastors who may be watching. If any of you want to chime in and just
Pastor Mark Rains, Pastor Mike Marsh,
you guys want to answer this? What is it? I have heard a lot of times where people have said things such as, we shouldn't have, or you shouldn't preach issues that are in the church. And, I don't know if I see that biblically, because I see biblically where Jesus said, or Paul, this such and such is going on.
All they talk to is religious people.
Right. Such
like
and such.
At all.
And they have to, and now I'm not talking about preaching a person's personal business.
No, I preach people's text messages. I don't care. I'll be like, get a load of this inbox I got last night. No. Listen, I have run into that buzzsaw. I've run into that buzzsaw, particularly at the church I was raised in, and I began preaching, and I was accused of preaching on people or preaching very immediate to circumstances. Right. The fact of the matter is that the New Testament church, and I'm a New Testament kind of guy. Not to say that the pastor should use the pulpit as a bully pulpit, but I do believe that as shepherds, we are the pastors and leaders of the church. We have an obligation to do what the Bible says: reprove, correct,
reproach,
set the house in order. So if gossip has arisen in your church and it's created a problem, I don't think the pastor's out of order. Matter of fact, it'd be better off sometimes if you just go on ahead and preach the issue that everybody knows is going on.
There you go.
Might as well. And truth be told, all these daggone meetings and messages and phone calls here's God's standard. Here's God, because we'll kill ourselves with all these private meetings and all this stuff. And people who say you shouldn't preach the issues of the church over the pulpit, that's literally like most of Paul's writings. He is like, Bob's messing up. Right. There's a group of y'all, or there's a group of y'all that's teaching this doctrine, and you need to be clear about what's happening. We get into the tongues and spirit-led church and all that stuff. There are some of y'all all speaking in tongues at the same time. You're causing confusion in the church. Nobody's speaking English anymore. People don't understand the word. You need to stop that. This is how service should go. Literally, if we want to make his letters into sermons, which they kind of sort of are, somebody said there are 3 meetings: the one before, the one meeting, and the one after. You're right about that, Brother Smith. There are definitely more. So I firmly believe in preaching, because every church is a unique body and family. And just like the leader of a church and the leader of a household, you address what's going on in your household. You don't do it to the detriment of the witness of the church. You don't air out and the visitors looking around like, who y'all talking about? You do formulate it in a way that it is a learning experience for everybody. Whether you are a part of this body or you're just a Christian, these are God's expectations for all of us. And
I think it's great to say, like you said, what does God have to say on this subject? Whether it's gospel, whether it's, the church has had an uprising in teenage pregnancy.
Yeah.
A
season of dissension and division. Right, what if the church is on the verge of splitting and it's been having a series of ugly meetings and callous behavior towards one another? And even on the backside of that, which I have alluded to in our church at times, I have said, hey, there have been very tough seasons for our church, maybe before my tenure. It's well known, it's daggone, public knowledge that there were ugly seasons, in churches, or scandals that might have occurred in churches. I believe there are gracious ways of addressing that and talking about how we learn and commit to not repeating those things and using biblical examples. So I definitely believe that we should not be so pie in the sky that we don't pay attention to the issues right in front of our noses. And again, now some people will never be satisfied, because in some cases, some people think you should never say anything, and some people think you're never saying enough, because they have an idea of what you need to address, how strongly you need to address it, and you'll never be as you'll never please them, to be honest. You'd have to call up the person they're mad at and like beat them up in front of the church for them to be satisfied. And
right.
that's not going to happen. So I definitely believe, not just issues in the church. Now, when we talk about sermon prep, and thank you, Pastor Walker. I appreciate it. Let's read Pastor Walker's comment. You preach on the subject that affects the church, not aiming at the person. And if one is dealing with the subject, usually there are more. You better believe it.
Sir.
It's like ants, Doc. If you see one, it's the whole colony. And by the way, and it's been talked about, it's been discussed. People have already formed their opinion. They're practically waiting to see what you're going to say so they can discuss it some more. To be honest, I'm talking about unspiritual people who are still carnal minded. They're going to do that. And I will go as far to say, and you can tell me, I don't think you should be afraid of losing people over preaching truth.
Listen, I've always said, I've said it over and over again. You can't lead them if you need them.
Bruh.
You can't lead them if you need them. There are times you have to, you have to say.
Write that one down, Doc.
You sometimes you have to say stuff and not worry about the ramifications of it. Some people are going to leave. Some people are not going to like what you say, and but I think if God placed it on your heart to say it, and hopefully, like you said, say it graciously. Deal with it graciously, and there it is.
And I add my own rhyming point to it, and I mean this seriously, to be honest. If it wasn't this thing, it was going to be something.
Yeah.
So whatever thing that was the offense, and usually it's in sermon based, whatever thing it is, and that's the thing, it was probably going to be something. It just happened to be this thing. And you're absolutely right about needing people so much. And I mean, and let's be honest. I mean, we do live in a world that has shifted the expectations of the preacher, what it means to be a preacher. And a lot of this has to do is because they're listening to a lot of preaching that is not coming from their own pastor, who actually knows them and knows the flock. There is a difference between listening to someone prepare a sermon that is going out to millions of people and is broken down into 20-minute clips or 15-minute clips or 3-minute clips.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And someone who is living among the people, the shepherd that actually lives among the sheep. He smells like the sheep. He knows the sheep. He knows their families, where they live, what they're doing, when they're slipping. He knows when they just look funky in church and know something wrong. No, people aren't the same. So it is a different dynamic, and it takes nothing away from the sermon clips. The word, those are great words. But they might, and honestly, sometimes you're watching clips of some other preacher talking to his house and not your house.
Right. There it is.
It's also his house. Oh, Dave. Wait, read Dave's.
It also matters if this issue is with a sheep in the congregation and a wolf. Woo, they don't get treated the same.
Bruh. Listen, you did. I'm about to send Dave a link and bring him into this joint. Listen, I'll start walking off pews and kick him in the face. I don't care. You're a wolf anyway.
And let's preface this conversation.
I'll wrap this mic cord around your neck and stuff.
And let's preface this conversation, Pastor Todd, with this is not pointed or this is not take away from the angry pastor, because there are some pastors who are just angry. There are some pastors who are just fussing, and they fuss about every little thing. And
you going to hell, and you going to hell.
And let me give my next rhyming point. You can never get good meat out of a mad cow.
Woo! So Jeff is back to preaching. You've been in rare form today. Did you take a nap?
Yeah, I took a little nap. But okay. I mean, and that's the truth, So when you're up there and you're just angry and you telling everybody's business, and I think I have an issue with people who say God left me to be the remnant. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
stay. I can't listen. Listen. If
No.
a house is on fire, you don't need permission to get out the
Peace
house.
out, Doc. Peace out. Run.
You know, so I mean, if this person is just, you know, spewing hate and, you know, madness and anger over the pulpit, you know, it's trust me, it's 61 and it's 61 African American
Right.
churches just in Warren.
Right. Right. Oh
So
yeah. In the vicinity and beyond. Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's plenty of places to find something somewhere. Uh, what resources do you use, Pastor Jeff? Uh, what resources would you say you lean on, or do you?
I do. I am a big book person. I am a big, huge, whether it be concordance, whether it be uh, lexicon, whether it be, you know, I use, you know, a million different Bibles. I'm not, I know a lot of people have went to these, I can't even remember what they're called on the computer,
Logos and
Logos.
yeah.
I can't, it doesn't work for me.
It kind of
I'm a page,
aggravates me, to be honest, too. To be, and I'm a techie. I'm just
right.
not.
I'm a pages person. I mean, I have books for every occasion. Every, you know, I got commentary on every single book of the Bible, and I mean, it's not to say that you know, I don't steal stuff, but I read, and it helps me to expand what God has already given me. So
Right. Well, good for
that's
you, because I steal stuff, man. My entire reference library is the Jamal Harrison Bryant YouTube page. I just, I just, whatever he preached 5 years ago, I just preach it now, and I hope people forget about it. Uh, we was raised, Pastor George. My father, he talked highly of, make sure you have your concordance and your vines
yeah.
in front of you, which I do. I also would caution people to know, and I've run into this myself personally. I think most of us younger ministers do, and unlearned ministers who want to grab a few books. Just simply tracing that number or clicking that link to see what the Greek or Hebrew is only part of the story, to be honest.
Absolutely.
Now, it
Absolutely.
can give you the basis of what you need, but it's only part of the story. I'm like you, a lot of just random books that pique my interest. And honestly, as I read, I let the spirit minister to me and
Mhm.
draw things out that are interesting. I'm taking some classes right now, and these books are full of rich points. I'm reading. I've gone through two books on church history, two classes on church history, and I mean, a lot of it involves the schisms and differences and debates that helped form Christianity, and some that still exist. And just listening to these individuals state their case and
Mhm.
state their points is ridiculously enriching. I mean, we are like really missing out on not reading the church fathers and knowing
Absolutely.
what some of the, even the Karl Barths and the Dietrich Bonhoeffers and of the world, like a lot of people do not spend time really reading even the German, and Wesleyan, that type of stuff. So that is very very essential to me, is just to have resources and to allow the spirit to work through what I'm engaging. And then what we're seeing, of course, in the world. Mark has a great
Right.
question I think both of us can address. And the question is, what part does prayer and fasting play in your sermon prep? I would say a big part,
Huge.
but something I do, to be honest, is I have set apart times for prayer that are not necessarily like I went in my basement for 2 hours.
Right.
It could be a long car ride. And if I have a particular sermon that I'm working on right now, and I don't know when it's going to come because it is controversial. It has to do with sexuality and the changing norms of identity, and how does the church address it? And it's not because I'm fearful in any way, shape, or form. I just want, definitely, because let's just be clear, there are just some themes that are so common to the preacher and the Christianity. You can just kind of run through them, and they will be fruitful and
Right.
helpful to the body.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean you're phoning it in. It doesn't mean you're just rehashing old material. It's still encouraging, the David and Goliath stuff, all that. But there are certain things that are extremely sensitive and may even help point your church and people's minds in a different direction doctrinally or relationally. And I believe that those sensitive things definitely deserve more attention. And so what I don't do is just pray and just hope I come out of that with some prophetic sermon and then just start speaking off the cuff in the pulpit, because I think that's unwise and reckless, quite frankly. And it's not how I operate personally. Maybe somebody else has that God stream of consciousness. It ain't me. I do need to have my 3 points, and they all have to start with the same letter.
Those are the greatest, ain't they?
It's called alliteration. It's called alliteration. And I'll be honest, I do it for 2 reasons. Number one, it helps me remember my points. They were the same points I was going to make, whether they had letters or not, to be honest.
Right.
But they also help me stretch my vocabulary, and I want to be a better speaker. Can I be clear about this? As a preacher, I want to be a good speaker.
Absolutely.
I want to keep people's attention, interest. I want to challenge myself. I do not want to be an ain't got good speaker for the rest of my life. There's got to be more words than the 1 or 2 or 3 buzzwords we come up with.
Say something for 20 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes of the sermon, you hoop and holler and hold your air.
I'm gonna do that too. Yeah, I'm gonna do that too.
But for me, honestly, like you said, it's the prayer. Mostly it's me going to work. Obviously, a lot of y'all may or may not know I work 12 hours. Big Mike, when he comes in, can attest. There'll be times I have 10 books out on my desk at work, and I'll write literally 20 pages of notes for a 20-30 minute sermon. At the end of the week, I'm trying to bring all these notes into one little sermon, and half of them I don't even use, but I keep them because I may go back to it, because I may have to preach this thing again. There's times I've preached the same sermon 3 times, 3 different ways, so those notes come in handy.
Who is a paramour that said if it's worth preaching once, it's worth preaching again?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so you're right. There is so much that comes, and on the flip side, there have been times when I literally scratched down 3 words and got up and preached a full sermon off of it, because there is a such thing as a certain confidence. There are times when I am on shaky ground as far as my familiarity and even my spiritual confidence about what I'm saying for whatever reason. Maybe God is doing that purposely, in order to challenge me and make me dependent on him, as opposed to comfortable with my routine of writing sermons. And there are times when I go in like, I know what's going to come out, but I don't know what's going to come out. I know what I've studied. I know what I feel like I've heard God say that I want to say, but there are other times where all I need is 3 words. This is so strong and so easy. And and I don't want to say easy as if I'm saying it's easy, but it is. Let's be clear. It's as easy for me to get up and preach as it is for LeBron to get on a basketball court and play basketball. It is what we do. So, back in the sermon prep, do you deal with any anxiety or fear?
Oh, definitely. There's well, I tell you what helped me a lot. This is something I was going to bring up anyway, so I'll just bring it up now. A couple years ago, my boy, I don't know if he's on. Matter of fact, I tagged him too. Sylvester Patton asked me to come up to Dallas or Texas and preach for him. Huge church up there, huge major church. And I mean, I just had anxiety. I had anxiety from the time he asked me. And I think it was probably the 2 weeks before he called me. He said, how you doing, man? We talked a little bit. He said, I hope you ain't trying to, make something new up to come up here. He said, man, get on a horse that you already rode and ride it again.
Right.
and it helped me, because I didn't feel the pressure or the anxiety, because I don't know these people. I've never been to this church. I don't know how they feel. You know what I'm saying? So I'm able to grab a sermon that I've already grabbed or preached and, and preach it again. And it worked out well. And I mean, I think, and I'm not saying everybody, I think more preachers probably do that more often than what is thought.
Oh yeah. It definitely happens more often, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, the Bible repeats itself. Prophets repeat themselves. Paul repeated himself. Jesus repeated himself. But even with nervousness, I mean, I've definitely felt it. And I'll be honest, again, there is a certain confidence, and I'm working on it. Not cockiness, not feeling like I have the cat by the tail, but again, there is a certainty of the call. And again, and I thank Brother Thomas for saying that it's a bad sign if you're not nervous. I do think that it comes in different forms in your preparation. It comes in different forms in the way that you express yourself, and everybody's different. A big part of my journey has been learning to accept that I belong, that I'm good enough, and that I'm a blessing to people, and I fit in spaces where I'm thinking, yeah, they're just gonna humor me. They're gonna humor me, say good job, and send me on my way, and I'm really not, saying anything of any dynamic, but I've been proven wrong again and again and again. But my body responds when I'm nervous. I am more stressed out, even aching when I've been up and I was nervous. I sweat more. My mouth gets dry. When I preached a 10-minute sermonette for Bishop at Berean, first of all, I didn't want to disappoint him, look bad. I know he has a giant audience online. And I mean, my lips were mush mouth like the first minute. This cat's giving me his water. I was embarrassed. He was like, he felt bad for me. He was like, you can have my goblet, doc. You about to die. Up, like you about to you look like the mummy, like the mummy up here. So it manifests itself in me physically.
But does it come because of, like you said, somebody? I mean, when you preaching in front of somebody like Bishop, or I mean, I'm generally not nervous. I mean, and not to be braggadocious, I believe that I can.
I'm typically not nervous either.
I believe
so I believe that the platform.
Yeah, the platform. When I come to second, I know what you bring every week. I know what you bring. The reason I joined Agape, me and my wife came 3 times, and I'm like, okay, everybody got that one good sermon. The next week I came, you hit it out the ballpark again. The next week came, and I'm like, oh, this dude can actually preach. You know what I mean?
Then he joined and I started fussing. These preachers always joining these churches. You need to be in Bible study.
But I mean, there's certain platforms you get on where it's just like, man, this that dude. You know what I mean? You don't want to.
And man, we probably had to have a whole show about this, and we always come up with ideas in the middle of our shows. But let's not pretend like most people don't think in the back of their minds that this platform could lead to another platform.
Come on, sir.
Can we be politically incorrect with all you pure-hearted? Pure-hearted. I'm doing it for the Lord. Nah, no. You are hoping somebody at or above the caliber of where you're already at might notice, and I mean, it can be genuine. It's not some callous trying to climb the ladder. Sometimes you're just like, it is a matter sometimes of self-worth or am I personally appreciated in any way, shape, or form? And will someone notice the gift in me? Will anyone notice me enough to affirm me? I don't have to always be at the top level, but would I get one shot? Would I get one chance to prove? Because I believe there are a lot of geniuses in small churches, a lot of unknown people. And unfortunately, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but a lot of weak words coming on big platforms just because of relationships.
Come on, sir.
A lot of weak words coming on large platforms just because of relationships. And again, and then even like the word, like a lot of this stuff's been said before, said a different way, rearranged, new terminology and all that. But then I look at people who are sincere, who can present well, and who knows what blessing they might be to people if we get the chance. So I'll say what a lot of preachers won't say. When you do get that one chance, there is in the back of your mind that, if the bishop of my church asked me, then maybe others on the board or others who are of prominence in this, organization, denomination, maybe they'll notice and see. And again, it's not all self-aggrandizing. I want a big check and I want to travel.
Right.
It's not that. So it's hard to describe because there are some people who will hear those words and that's all they'll think is y'all preachers just trying to get on big, just think you deserve this and that. So I think that's a big part. I
don't think it's wrong. I don't think it's wrong for you to get a job as a dishwasher and hope to soon be a cook. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think we hold preachers as we have to be this humble, modest, and we should be humble and modest, but it's not wrong to not want to, want to have a bigger church or
to recognize your gift, man. I mean, if the singer can sing and know they singing, and the musician can play and know he's playing, then the preacher can preach and know he's preaching.
Oh, he's preaching. That's right. That's right.
I know I'm preaching better than you saying amen. You give me a new church, I bet you I have folks rolling on the floor right now over these whack 3 points. Y'all looking at me crazy. I'd have been up all night and y'all looking at me crazy. Shoot, you hear me second? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Mark talked about something. I do want to switch gears because we're coming up on our time, but Mark talked about, do we get nervous with corrective messages? I typically don't anymore. I regret sometimes after the fact when you find out people took them and, ran with it, and you're like, oh man, this is going to turn into something. So I might be more nervous afterwards than before. And let's be clear, when preachers get up and get ready to preach that message, they bold, they mad, they
yep.
they got something to say. They ain't thinking about it. It's after the fact.
Hey, when you get up and you say, we're not recording today.
Yeah, we got to turn the stream off.
Turn the stream off. You know it's on the pop.
I need you to take this off of Facebook. I need you to take this off of Facebook. I got some things to say. Lock the doors.
It won't be no hollering and shouting today. We're just gonna talk for a little while.
Lady Dela Cruz asks, "Are you nervous about preaching on money?" Not anymore. I used to not be good at it, but I admit that I am not a good fundraiser. I'm not good at. I'm getting better, and I'm using very plain language for those of you that are super spiritual, or those of you that think preachers are phony or whatever. I'm just using very plain language. I've never been good at raising funds with my voice. I've never been good at persuading people to give large sums of money. I'm very businesslike. I'm like, look, this costs this much money. Let's do some math real quick. I pull out a calculator. It'd be like, if all of us give this much, let's do this and go home. But I've learned that there is a gift in describing the blessings of God. I got a new phrase that I use all the time now, and it's, God's windows are far bigger than your wallets.
Wow, I like that.
God's windows are far bigger than your wallet.
I'm gonna tell you right now, I just stole that.
Go ahead and stole it.
That would be said on Sunday.
Yeah. Go ahead and take it.
That would be said on God.
Go ahead and take it. But I mean,
your wallet.
But let's be clear: corrective sermons, money sermons, those are all hot button issues that the pastors have been marked for years as the pastor's either going to fuss or beg or brag. And if you go in any of those directions, whether you're talking about being successful or how God has blessed the church, or you're talking about what we need to do as far as giving, or an endeavor or a vision that requires giving, or correcting something, I think that at this juncture for us, I do think that there is a little bit of an extra tinge of social consideration because of the world we live in, where people are not totally tied to the loyalty to the church, where they put up with stuff. There's already a negative tone to everything. So there's already like this could turn into a Facebook post or a Twitter feed, or somebody could just say my name online and twist what I said. And so, we live in a far more sensitive society now.
But I think there's a way that you can preach on money without begging, without, there's a way that you can.
And it matters who it comes from. Let's just be clear.
Absolutely.
If I've said it before, I'm not saying it's out of a bitter spirit or nothing. You can think what you want to think. But if the guy is popular, if the guy is handsome, if the guy is well spoken, all of a sudden everything he's saying makes sense.
And I just feel like, and this is just,
this cat can take your dollars and your draws if you want. I feel
like if I know that I'm one of the biggest givers in my church, so I don't have a problem preaching on giving. I know what I do. I know what I do.
Do you take Grover said, I'm pretty good at getting the money.
That yo, Grover?
Yeah, block my deacons from this podcast. I need you to block my whole deacon board from this podcast.
You say pretty good on getting the money.
You see the bag pretty good. Oh, Lord.
Grover standing up there in that white suit like, come on now, come on.
Come on. First Sunday. Hey, it's coming, Doc. First Sunday.
That is hilarious.
I want to switch gears. I do want to switch gears because we've talked about relevancy and preaching relevant. Now, I joked earlier this week about, preaching on the Crate Challenge. And honestly, once we got, and I said this earlier in the podcast already, all the good jokes, it was literally stale by Saturday anyway.
Right.
It was already stale by Saturday anyway. How important, and we need to bring a pastor. We need to bring somebody in. I don't know, Mike, if our pastor is on. He says he's backstage, but I don't think he's. I don't see him on. We're bringing Pastor Bowie in. We'll just spill it. But I don't think we got him on correctly. We'll figure it out. But how important is it to you to be relevant to whatever's going on in the world?
For me, I try to add in many of my sermons, I try to add current events. I don't try to make them the topic. I don't try to make them the main point, but I try to add what may be a current event in the topic, in the means of what I'm talking about. So I'm not the preacher who, like you said, I don't try to grab a topic and then try to find a scripture that makes that topic relevant. I don't.
So what do you think about pastors then who seem to center all of their sermons, like every week or every month, it is whatever the movie that was popular, it's the Avengers, it's I'm preaching on Captain Marvel, I'm preaching on Shades of Grey.
I think it's gimmicky, and I don't think people need gimmicks, they need God.
But people can relate. Mark says no gimmick sermons, but people can relate. I have used graphics, and I will use some illustrations, and we'll talk about illustrations in a minute. But I agree. I think they should be sparingly used. And then you have to think about, because I believe personally the word should be, think about what we have to know about what Jesus was saying in context about the agriculture of the day. And he's talking about wine presses and stuff. And you got to look up all this junk about olives and wine presses and how it was done to figure out what he was talking about. Now, just think about how somebody 50 years from now is going to know what Dreamgirls was, or what the Crate Challenge was, or, about the debate between LeBron and Jordan. People are going to be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Or maybe it won't matter because we have moved on to some other trend, but I have used some themes. I've gotten away from using movie and TV and this and that. And, I think that, and then Dave said it perfect. He says relevancy comes from a living and active word for me, and it speaks to all times and occasions, and current events can still preach from ancient texts. And I agree with you 1,000%.
That is wonderful. I love that.
And by the way, Jesus pointed to stuff around him and said, look there at the tree. Mm-hmm. So there's nothing wrong with saying, just like we all saw in the news this week, or just like we all know the line from that movie. There's nothing wrong with that, I believe. I believe it should start with the word. Absolutely. And then if that helps to bring it, and sometimes it's just loosening people up, telling that joke, saying, and I'm not saying like a prepared joke, like a little boy was in the forest one day. We always had this mess. And it always ends with like the preacher cheating on his wife or something. It's always the end of the joke. But I do think that, but I do think you can point to things and it helps people to draw them in like you do understand real life. Because by the way, I've heard some opposite stuff where it seems like the preacher lives on another planet. Like the preacher doesn't even know what's going on in the world, period.
Absolutely.
And some people like make a joke out of it. Like, I don't know about this bippity bop and hippity hop. And I'm like, all right, man. Okay. All right. We get it. But like you're going overboard to try to prove that the world ain't got you. And I ain't got to like quote, the Migos to make sense. But I don't want to sit here and act like I never heard of television either.
Right.
Like I'm just praying under a tree all week. And, I got a revelation. We got to bring Bowie in to finish this up because he's about to knock it out. Our guest, our made up guest tonight is Pastor James Bowie. we tipped him off. He's in the shoe department ready to sell some used Jordans to people.
That's a sermon topic. That's a sermon topic right now.
This cat, and this is the dude that your kids be always saying they need their new Jordans from, and he's the reseller. They're selling Jordans for $375. By the way, hey mama, this is who your kids keep talking about.
Hey,
what's happening, Pastor Bowie?
too.
Right.
How you doing, man?
Doing good, y'all. Doing good, man.
Thank you for tapping in for a second, man.
Man, everything y'all saying is right on, man. We all in that wheelhouse some way, with a lot of what you guys are saying. When it comes to preaching, like you're talking about subject matter, pretty much, man. I'm right out the text. Like today, I preached out of last week and today I preached out of last week was like Mark. When Jesus says, watch, because take heed and pray. I just preached the sermon like, watch.
Right.
Because he said it like 4 times in the text. And then today, Mark chapter 1, when he says, repent and believe in the gospel. That was my subject. Repent and believe in the gospel. Sometimes it's just right there.
So you didn't have to come up with a title like A Recipe for Repentance.
Yeah,
that's
right.
That's what I would do.
Now, see, I like clever titles. I'm a clever
Jeff
title
has a lot of them. Jeff has a lot of them.
Man, when he say talk about tag the text, man, he be tagging it tough.
Yeah. He tags it, retags it. He spray paints it, wrap it up, flip it, rub it down. Oh no. Jeff violates the text.
Just for example, it's so crazy. Just for example, today, I started to say the sermon topic. I'm coming out. And so I talked about back in 1980.
I heard you today.
I went through the whole thing of stonewashed jeans and.
Well, y'all was alive in 1980. Y'all was alive. I wasn't even alive.
See, hey, boy, that's exactly what I said. And some of y'all too young to even understand what I'm talking about.
Y'all don't know nothing about this. You don't know nothing about this.
And I talked about how I was sitting in the living room watching reruns of Space Ghost.
Oh man!
And my mother was in the kitchen cooking chicken and told me to come in and turn up the radio. And it was a song, and I actually played the song during the sermon. It was Diana Ross, "I'm Coming Out."
Okay, you're definitely going to hell now, Jeff.
Hey man, I just had a couple months ago. I just had my daughter get me a G-Force shirt on Amazon. None of these kids know nothing about G-Force.
They don't know about G-Force?
G-Force.
But what do you think about that, Pastor? What do you think about the people using today's, topics, current events to make their sermon more popular?
I think we just have to be careful about trying to stimulate people. We looking, and I think you may have said it, Pastor Stanford, about gimmicky.
Yeah.
We're not careful, we can stimulate them something. And after we've hit them with that nice title on there, and the message is nothing but fluff.
Yeah.
After that,
so there's a lot of guys that prepare the title and no sermon.
Come on.
There's a lot of guys like, I could have walked out after you said the title, and I would have been happier. I would have been happier if I had walked out after you said the title, because after you sit through it, you'd be like, "What in the world was this?"
Yeah. And let's just be clear. Your title, something in your message ought to reflect the title that you gave.
And the scripture you read.
And the scripture
please,
the scripture you read, please.
Man, they will read the scripture and act like the Bible don't exist after they read it. I'm like, what? And can we be clear? This is religiously incorrect. Y'all can log off now if you are religiously correct. We judge you. People that know the word judge you. Other preachers judge you. Pastor Sheely walked in our church today. He was in town. Pastor Philip Sheely walked in. He's the pastor of Greater Apostolic Church for 25 years. I call him Uncle Phil. He's my Uncle Phil. When he walked in church, I gave him a great big hug before I went to the pulpit, told him how happy I was to see him, and then told the church I'm changing my sermon right now. This word I had was garbage. I'm not preaching this at all.
You know what, Pastor Todd? There's been a couple of times in preaching where I've been intimidated. I know I done studied. I believe what I have is right. And then somebody who I look up in the ministry come in because they hear, hey, you over here preaching, you over there. And it's like, oh, man, oh, boy.
Yeah. It'll do it to you. It will do it to you. You don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to embarrass yourself. You know, you don't want them to think differently about you when it's over.
Right.
I was laughing at Marlon's comment. He said, "I saw a preacher with the title Between the Sheets, and it was a Resurrection Sunday sermon." What? Was it there was nothing between the sheets?
Let's see.
Listen, I know a preacher who preached and he rode that ASS.
See that? See, because now watch this. Now what you done done is you done took somebody's mind someplace.
Absolutely.
And I don't agree, by the way, because I see preachers do this. And you know what? I said this before. I said this last week with Dr. Dela Cruz. Preachers, and some of our older preachers especially, and some young preachers do it too. We know that we're still dealing with this somewhat Puritan crowd that gets, thank you, Pastor. Mark just said it. Sorry, I called you Pastor. Mark Rain just said it. Shock value out of almost cussing in the pulpit or saying something shocking. And even, you know, they'll say a real Puritan, like the rest of us will roll our eyes, but them church mothers just act like he done said something crazy because in their world it is crazy. But we know that he's playing to them or she's playing to them purposely, trying to play bad boy, you know. And then the young people do it too. Some of our younger preachers who are trying too hard. Yes, I'll say it. You are trying too hard to be edgy. We don't need no more Reverend Howard Sterns. And we don't need this stuff. We don't. We don't need you. Well, if you're gonna preach on sexuality and relationships, we don't need you jumping in beds and pulling out sex toys and talking. You know, we don't need all that. We don't need to know what you do with your wife at home and all this other stuff, so that you can literally titillate people, get them going, create a viral moment, get people talking about how wild and real you are, when really you're seeking attention to yourself, and the message got lost.
You know what, Pastor? I had a situation few years ago where it was something that happened sexual harassment wise, you know, that came to me. And when that happened, I preached a sermon out of when Amnon raped Tamar. And I told them going in at the beginning of the message, it's going to be some heavy content here. I'm going to be talking about some stuff. So they already knew, hey, rape was going to get out there. We're going to be talking about sex. So when pastors start preaching, it ain't shock value preaching. I'm preaching because a situation has come, and y'all need to know how these things are dealt with.
Right.
How this thing happened, how do we deal with it? So the language has to become familiar because you had rape in the Bible.
Right.
You had these things. And the more we stay away from subject matter, that, the more that stuff becomes taboo.
And accepted undercover as a reality. I actually used the same text a couple years ago to preach Bring Back Our Girls, which was the trend we're talking about trendy, but I thought it was appropriate because there was a reckoning going on even prior to Me Too, and especially in the Black community, of dealing with exploitation, just inappropriateness. There were, you know, in many of our churches, a trail of wreckage of bad behavior by preachers, deacons, men in the church, objectifying women, and we don't want to be honest about it. I had to get up in the pulpit and say, I am certain and sure, even as a young man who wasn't around everything, that there were probably people who will never walk back in this church because of some experiences they had with some handsy deacon or some shady brother, or was preying on the young girls, you know, in their vibrant stage in life, and, you know, they old and playing that extra long unholy hug stuff, and we think it's a joke, and we don't want to talk. And I had to be honest, like, we've probably run people away. We have probably hurt people. We need to repent as a church, even if we didn't do it personally, and say that, you know, we need to address and make sure we hold up a standard, you know, and not joke about these things. So I agree with you. We have to hit the heavy subjects. And as I said before you got on, some people will feel like we're never hitting it enough, or we're never addressing it enough, or we're never dropping the hammer. They want us to string up dudes on the pulpit and say it was deacons, you know, blah, 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 and bring his descendants up here so we can embarrass, you know. It might not go that far, but we do have to address it.
Absolutely. I think probably one of the heaviest ones I preached was when hurting sisters, when hurting sisters have to deal with sick brothers. And I literally dealt with the whole thing that happened up in Cleveland with the 3 girls who were took and molested and the sick brother and what he had to go through. And then I went with the whole Ruth and how her husband and sons had to die, and she had to deal with a hurting sister had to deal with sick brothers.
Right.
And so I think these things need to be talked about, and we need to deal with them because it's happening. It's happening in our world.
Yeah.
And I think there's a legitimate way to deal with it and a biblical way to deal with it.
We have a question I do want to add. I'll give my quick 10-second answer, 3-second answer, actually, and then I'll pass to Pastor Bowie. Jameson asked, should you look up to pastors? I'll tell you, I look up to pastors and their preaching.
Yes.
And their demeanor. I'm not trying to be them, but I have gleaned and refined my presentation, the way I relate, the way I try to have pulpit presence, and even the way, and again, not copying someone else's style, not trying to growl like this one or do this or that. But if I notice that I could be more structural and I'm around someone who is very well structured, I take note. You better pay attention to somebody who's doing what you hope to do.
Absolutely.
Right, right.
Does LeBron look up to Michael Jordan? Absolutely. So
come on, sir.
Go ahead, Pastor Bowie.
Yeah, you're right. I believe when we start off preaching, until we become who we are and continue to excel, there's somebody in our life. I remember for a long time, I used to get off work late at night, and Bishop Neville's used to be on. So listen to Bishop Neville's. And there's a lot of things that Bishop Neville used to say, little catchy things that I put into my sermons because I just thought they were good transitioning ways for me. So him, there's a pastor, God rest his soul, Lonnie Simon, Pastor Morris Lee, and I looked up, to these guys. So there were things you model from them. You learn pulpit etiquette, behavior. Those things you learn because there's another batch of preachers coming behind. And this is what I do with my young preachers that my pastor didn't do with us. But to help my new ministers in training come, I allow them to sit in the pulpit before they're even licensed so they can get comfortable. They can see the pulpit. They can watch etiquette, how I do things. They learned that then. I just thought it was something that they needed to know because I didn't get to know it till after I've been licensed and sat in the pulpit for the first time.
True.
So that's very
when we
good.
do throw people into it, you're right.
That's
definitely look up. Go ahead, Pastor Jeff.
I would just say, there's a lot of things, a lot of, my tendencies I get from my father, because he raised me. A lot of the ways I act, a lot of the things I say, I got from my father. And I think, for how long was it, Pastor Todd? You and Deacon Tony would always say, I would say, I just stopped by here on my way to glory. It was because Pastor Harrison said it so much.
Right.
It was just something that, it was innate in me that it just came out. And I think, we're going to get things. We're going to glean things off of those who are wiser and more astute than we are. So,
and we do like those clever. I mean, I would copy people more if I can get away with it and not be, because they be saying some stuff that I got. Thank you for listening from Dr. Melvin Howard.
Okay.
Dr. Melvin Howard would wreck the church on a Sunday night, come down from his hoop and say, "Thank you for listening." I'm like, what?
That's a cat. It's a Paramore thing too. Paramore always said
he didn't hoop to Mississippi and back, and then had the nerve to just say, "Thank you for listening." I'm just like, hilarious. So I say that people think I'm being clever after I usually say it between my points and my hoop. Before I'm ready to rev up, I'm like, "Thank you for listening to all the junk I had to say about this text." Thank you for listening. And then take off. He would say it after he came down, and so I took that. Bishop Clark says, "Preach, Clark," And then he answers himself and says, I'm doing the best I can with a hostile crowd.
Yes, he does.
I wanted to make him a shirt and say that. I'm doing the best I can. Matter of fact, next time I go to the church with Berea, I'm going to wear a t-shirt that says hostile crowd.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Even when I'm teaching my Bible study lessons, I picked this up from Pastor Paramore. I hope this helping somebody.
I hope this helping.
Because I ain't got nothing else.
Listen. This is the best. This is all I got, y'all. I want y'all to know that. This is all I got. We got a couple of quickies. We'll just make these our rapid fires since we're coming up on time.
You might as well bring Mike in.
Well, he doesn't want to come in. He says we'll just finish with Pastor Bowie. Pastor Bowie will be Mike today. So rapid fire. Marlon asked, "What was your most creative sermon title?" I'm trying to look through my notes to find it to see if I can find a good one.
I got
Style but no substance.
Style but no substance.
I preached about the fig tree that Jesus spoke to and it withered up, and I talked about you got style. You look like something on the outside, but when Jesus came to draw fruit, there was none. So, and people still come up to me, Reverend Bowie, I still remember when you preached that. And I was back at Union Baptist.
I think mine was Dirty Not Dusty. I did that at New Bethel. And one I did at my own church was They Can't Handle My Happy.
Oh, wow. Nice.
They Can't Handle My Happy.
I think probably the most, I don't know. I got so many of them. I think I love From the Favor of the Crowd to the Fury of the Storm.
Okay.
Nice. It's just so many of them, but I really like that one. So
y'all don't give enough money. That was the name of my sermon. Mark Reyes, do you ever find yourself coordinating your sermon with the song selections that your music staff prepare for the week? So do you coordinate your sermon with the songs?
No, I don't.
Nah, not yet. I'm not there yet. My new MD has been asking, like, so what are you preaching this week? I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Bruh, it's Saturday at 6 o'clock. I got 6 more hours to figure this out, man. I have no idea. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I know that some churches like totally mold, and
everything has to go together. Yeah. I think it's nice. Don't get me wrong. I think it's beautiful. I'm not there yet, like you said.
You know what I think the church needs to do? I do think, and I was thinking this about myself, and I think we need to get back to having prepared invitation selections, and if having enough of a repertoire to meet where you end up at,
right? Because
you used to have that,
right.
At least some. It can't always become the Jesus.
Right.
And, so I do think that, but no, I'm not there yet, but I respect those who do.
Yeah, same here.
Okay, Big Mike wants to come in. Come on, Big Mike, and shut us down. He does have a question for Reverend Bowie. I think you owe him money or something.
I didn't know I had to pay the last
Right, listen.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's how this works.
You owe from last week. No, but real quick, usually when we have a pastor on, I ask this question, but I forgot to ask when you were on here, so I'm gonna ask you now. How good or how bad was your first sermon?
I say on a scale of 1 to 10, I give it a 5.
A 5. Okay, that's good.
Do you remember what it was? Do you remember what it was?
Oh man, nah, I can't remember the title.
Well, I mean, if y'all don't know, if you ain't never been in Pastor Bowie's office, he got every one of his sermons from 1923.
I got all of them.
He got them all named and categorized
on chalkboards.
I'm gonna start. No, he literally got
on papyrus.
No, he got them in
scrolls.
Yeah, basically scrolls. I said, what? I said, well, you got everywhere. He got them counted. He got funerals, weddings, sermons from the New Testament, from the Old. I said, Lord have mercy.
Hey, you know what I did? I take all my funeral sermons and I put all the funeral programs
with them
in with the sermons. And I say this as we're talking about preaching 101. a preacher saw that one day when he came. Oh man, wow! You know what he asked me? He said, "Can I get there?
Can I get the yeah?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I did? I gave it to him.
Gave it to him. I think Jeff remembers this.
Me many times.
I think Jeff remembers this. For a while at Agape, I would leave my Bible studies out on the table, and there's a local minister that was stopping by and taking them.
Okay.
And I think he was kind of rubbing the top, you know, the name off the top.
white out and stuff.
White out, yeah. Yeah, I'm like, bro, you could have just asked, man. I mean, why don't you just give credit? You know, why don't you just give credit where it's due? You know,
I'm gonna tell you right now, if my iPad ever get lost, because my stuff ain't in the cloud, I've lost every sermon I ever preached. I can tell I really do need to start downloading or printing them out or something.
You better write them joints down, man.
But you know what, Pastor Stanford? The pandemic made me do the opposite. Now I've got everything on my flash drive.
Okay.
Wow.
Because I'm taking my tablet now to preach. And so one of my preacher friends showed me how to use what's the thing on the iPad where I can't think what it is.
The Notes app?
That's not it's not Notes. It's an orange icon. What it is. It's orange, but it's for stuff like that. Anyway, I put all them, I upload them to them, and I use that now.
Yeah, I never thought you would use the iPad. You was using Notes up until about 3 years ago. We still using them Notes. I mean, he had them. But he had them. What is that? When you put the plastic covering over them?
Yeah, man.
He had everything. He had them right.
Heat protectors.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did want to for a while preach from papers. I wanted to preach from papers for one reason and one reason only, because Bishop J. Delano Ellis preached a classic sermon at the Kojic Convocation, and at the end he threw his papers in the air, and I thought that was the greatest. And I've been wanting to throw papers in the air in one of my sermons. I would put it on an iPad and still make papers and just throw them just to do it. I sure love throwing stuff. I didn't throw palms, my jacket. I threw my jacket once. I've done all kinds of stuff. I did throw a bulletin once. I did one of those. Forget the order of service. We don't need this order of service. And then after I got done carrying on, I was like, all right, what's next, y'all? Where the program at? I don't know what.
We gotta go, y'all. It's almost 10:30. We gotta go.
Hey, the one day I kicked off my shoes and my feet was stanking. I was like,
listen,
Lord, there you go.
Not the socks with the hole in it. That's what Grover already mentioned, the socks with the hole in it.
I was like, whoa, bring them shoes back here now.
The devil, the spirits that came in. Listen, y'all, we're gonna have to do a Preacher 101 part 2 and bring in some more preachers.
No doubt.
And listen, y'all, this is real. You do know preachers are human, right? And I feel it's better for us to just talk about life. You're still inspired. Holy Ghost still speaking to us, but life is life, and we gotta make it through it. You know, we've all preached some stinkers. We've had some funny. I didn't upload all my notes the last time I preached for Bishop Heron. I had updated more notes, and it didn't transfer to my iPad because I realized I had no Wi-Fi between doing it. So I'm opening my iPad, like, where all my notes go? Well, I only got like the base scripture in like one sentence. And I'm trying to remember what I said, and it came off, but it was, not great. So no, I love it. Pastor Boo, you want to leave us with any parting shots about sermon prep and sermon relevancy? Any parting shots? Just a word of wisdom.
I'll just say this. I went up, this was probably about a year or so still in my preaching. I went up for a preacher up in Cleveland, Pastor Gant was his name, and big church, big staff of preachers, and he had me up there to do 2 services. I'm like, all right, go up here, I'm hyped. It's my first away. I'm up in Cleveland, blah, blah, blah. I go up there, man, I preach. I thought it was great. Preached the second sermon, had dinner, preached the second sermon, thought that was great. He pulled me in the office afterwards, and he said to me, preacher, can you take criticism? In my mind, I said, no.
Right.
Yeah. And he said, you did good. He said, but you started way up here. Because you started there, you had nowhere else
to go.
Wow.
And you talking about humble? Man, I was humble pie all the way home.
Listen.
Like,
yeah. Been there.
Well, he would hate me because
Jeff gets out the car. Jeff gets out the car on 11. He pulls in the parking lot going 75 miles an hour in the Kia A flat.
Let's hit this ad, man.
We've been there. Our last ad from the Phillips Care family of businesses. Phillips Care Training are the new owners of High Street Fitness in Cortland. Mike Phillips is the owner from the Phillips Care family of businesses. Hit them up again, on Facebook at Phillips Care. They will get you right. It's too late to get right for summer. You might as well get right for Halloween, right before you get fat again for Thanksgiving. So do what you can do with what you got. Mike will get you right. His whole family. I mean, his baby does push-ups. I mean, his baby be out there doing box jumps and stuff. That's how he teaches the children how to walk, doing box jumps.
Right.
So we appreciate the Phillips Care family of businesses for being supporters. If you would like to be a sponsor of Religiously Incorrect and reach out to our millions of viewers all over the galaxy. Listen, we're already on the other side of the moon. I mean, listen, it's
Mark Raines is 12 people himself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he is my stunt double. He is my Youngstown stunt double. Since I'm afraid to come to the yo, Mark Raines goes for me.
Remember, y'all, next week, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock next week. 8
o'clock is our new September time. It's Religiously Incorrect Daylight Savings Time. We might have a special guest. We'll find out. We'll announce it. Black people don't confirm when they're supposed to. Let's be honest. Can we just be honest about this? If I asked Pastor Holbrook to be on, he'd be ready for January already. But Americans, we don't know. Hey, y'all, you don't act like you ain't had that speaker that you didn't know whether they's gonna show up or not. Like the night before. You didn't know. So hey, we gonna pick this up subject again. Love having you on, Pastor Bowie, man. It's always a pleasure. Give Lady Judy
thank you, sir.
love. Big Mike, Jeff, until next week.
All right. Peace. See you next week.
Peace out. That was pretty lively. I like that.